Welcome to the Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros. Your host, Mike Fierros, will dive deep into the world of IT and cybersecurity, bringing you the stories and insights of professionals who are making waves in the field. From how they got started, to their most exciting projects, and their advice for aspiring tech enthusiasts, we cover it all. So, whether you're an industry veteran or just getting started, join us as we explore the fascinating minds behind the technology that shapes our world. Let's get started.
Hey guys, how's it going? Mike again, Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros. If this is your first time listening to Cyber Tech Podcast on Spotify or on the Inspired by YouTube channel, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and make sure you can share this episode, the Cyber Tech Podcast, if you feel like it needed to be shared and it'll be worthwhile to people that listen to. And before I start off, big shout out to a young gentleman named Adrian. He's a listener to the podcast and a follower for the Inspired by platform. He lives in Yuma, Arizona, and he found a fake website that was portraying a legitimate business in Yuma, kind of like a ice cream with swallow type business. He checked the website search, found it was illegitimate, contact the business owner, and all that stuff. So big shout out to him. And this is definitely an encouragement to see when you see aspiring students for cybersecurity and information security doing kind of the legwork, if you will, when it comes to putting the practice in before you get into the field, before you get into the profession and kind of building your resume and stuff. So this is definitely what you want to definitely do. So big shout out to Adrian. I know you probably listen to this right now. Big listener to the podcast and great job. This episode of Cyber Tech Podcast, episode number 19, this episode, really excited because I have someone that I've first heard of when I went to a cyber kind of meeting conference, if you will, in Tucson late last year. There was a gentleman that was part of a group in Arizona called the InfraGard Arizona Members Alliance. And so I went on the website, saw this person on the website, and I thought it'd be really cool to have her come on here and share her story. Linked up with her on LinkedIn, and I thought she had a really unique background, and especially for those how to go about, maybe one day being a CISO, being a leader, if you will, in the information security space. Without further ado, I have Dara Gibson. She is the CEO, CISO, Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors. How's it going, Dara?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on the show today. I'm so excited to be joining you.
No, I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. I know we several times we've rescheduled this and pushed this back, and I really wanted to get you on here because, like I mentioned in the introduction, Dara, that when I saw your LinkedIn profile, you have a very unique story, and I think your story would definitely inspire those students that are really hungry to want to get into this field, whether it be cybersecurity, information security, or even IT for that matter, and how to kind of navigate the waters, if you will, going from level entry all the way to a CEO or even a CISO like you are, Dara. And I think can definitely help out inspire folks. And I really appreciate you getting on the podcast.
I am honored. Thank you.
For those that may not know who you are, Dara, kind of give a little background on yourself and how you got started in cybersecurity.
Yeah, my story is actually very unusual. I did not have the straight line path of high school, college, tech, first job, stay in it forever. Mine kind of looks like a roller coaster throughout life, right? When I went to college, we didn't have a cybersecurity degree program in the school. A matter of fact, I had a word processing unit. I didn't even have a computer in my room. I was at NAU when we got our first computer lab. So that was very exciting when we got computers in our dorms. And moving forward, it was no, I'm not as old as the dinosaurs, but we were, slow to adapt, I guess we should say.
Yeah.
And then I actually have my master's degree in education. So I went
Awesome.
to college and I became a teacher. And I had students come back and they're like, "You were the worst science teacher I ever had." I said, "Yeah, but we were always investigating new things, right?" And so it just makes me chuckle. But technology always was on the back burner. I was the first computer teacher at our school to show the kids how to use the internet when it came to the school that I was teaching at. So that was always exciting for me to try new things and be that first adapter when I became became the teacher in the school. And then stayed at home, but I always kept my curriculum writing skills together. And then I was at a networking event many years later, and a cybersecurity company was at this networking event, and not networking like hands on keyboard networking, person to person networking skills. And we just started talking, and they were in Arizona. They were trying to launch their US operations, and by the end of the evening, it was determined that I was going to write their curriculum for their cybersecurity awareness campaigns. So
Nice.
that's kind of how I tripped and fell into cybersecurity. Along the way, then I was with this organization. Not only did I write their cybersecurity curriculum for their cybersecurity awareness programs, but I launched their entire US operations. I launched their incident response team
Nice.
along with their insurability program with their insurance providers and their legal partnerships for the event response. Along came the various challenges and left that organization, went to another, and I built their insurability services. Then I decided to go to a different organization and launched their insurability services. So at this stage, I have developed my niche marketing in which I am a leader in speaking both insurance and cybersecurity. But because I come from the security side of the house, I truly have the ability to be that advisor and that consultant and the confidant when it comes to the organizations trying to build their most secure program in the eyes of insurance. So that's when I decided this earlier this year. I said, you know what? I've built programs for other organizations and other people.
Nice.
It's time for me to do it on my own. So then this year I decided it was time to launch Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors, in which I focus on the same strategies, building those foundations of security measures in the eyes of insurance but at the same time building it to reduce risk overall of the entire organization. So again, mine's like a roller coaster. It's not a straight line by any means.
No, no, that's a really good. I think that's a really good, especially in IT, cybersecurity, information security. I think that's like the main theme of folks' path, and it's definitely something I could definitely, Dara, because I've had that kind of same path too, where it's like, going from one industry that has nothing to do with IT or cybersecurity, information security, and I think that right there is very unique because, when you talk about cyber insurance, when you get your cybersecurity training, do the legwork, learn stuff, learn from folks. We really don't really have that cyber insurance in back of our head, really. We're thinking, folks that want to get to red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming. But I think that's an area of information security that's not talked about and may not be as popular, but it's definitely much needed. For example, like I do a lot of risk mitigation, a lot of GRC things, so I could definitely relate to that. Especially
Mhm.
controls, security controls is definitely, when you think about cybersecurity, no one really thinks about that, and that's super important, especially these days. Governance, risk, and compliance is it's such an important thing. I think that's definitely something that students that are listening to right now may not be thinking about right now, but definitely check out the information that Dara's letting you guys know. And GRC things, we need more proactive GRC folks out there, and not a lot of us out there. I love your story, Dara. I think that's going to inspire folks for sure.
To build on your
For
point
sure.
of the unusual careers within cybersecurity,
For sure.
GRC is not exciting or the
For
first
sure.
commander or, as people,
Uh-huh.
some people say, it's not very sexy, right? But it's
Yeah,
the
true.
baseline of your security program.
Yeah.
And you have to understand what you're going to protect and how you're going to protect it and
Mm.
why you're going to protect it before you can put those protective measures in place. Because if you're constantly buying the latest and greatest shiny new object to protect
Yeah.
your business, what good is it going to do if you don't know why or what you're truly protecting? And so I build on that conversation with the women in cybersecurity here in Arizona as I mentor a lot of the
Mm.
people in their fields. And I'll get people that say, oh, you know what? I've been in pharmaceuticals. I know a lot about HIPAA, but I'm going to quit my job and become a cyber analyst. I said, no, don't quit your job. You can be a HIPAA compliance officer because you want to
It's true.
build on the knowledge that you have. So, again, these career paths may not be a straight line, or you may not think you're in cyber, but at the same time, you really are doing a lot of the baseline work that a lot of people, others wouldn't even take on. And another person comes to mind is even marketing. We need
True.
cyber marketing pros all the time, or cyber blog writers, or cyber script writers, because it's important to make sure that we're putting the correct information out there. The spread of misinformation or malinformation would definitely happen if we don't have appropriate marketing people. Or website design. I mean, with the adaptation
True.
laws now and privacy laws now that need to be built into your websites, some website designers may not know that. And again, these are privacy and security control people that know these measures that need to be put in place.
That's some great information. That's so true. If for someone looking from the outside in, it's the last thing we think about. And you mentioned about that, Dara, that it's not the most popular thing, but it's definitely much needed because it kind of lays the foundation, if you will, for the rest of the cybersecurity programs and whatnot. That's awesome. That's definitely some gold nuggets right there for sure.
Here's another one I'm going to drop. If
For
you
sure.
are in high school and you're working even at McDonald's, let's say, McDonald's has a cybersecurity program. You don't have to quit. You can work your way up in the ranks. You can also look within your job board within any organization. It doesn't have to be McDonald's, but that was the example, right? Look within your open job boards and find out what's available within your own organization. You don't have to quit and start something new. You can find the workaround because everybody needs cybersecurity.
We don't think about those things, McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, all the fast food restaurants or Panda for that matter to
Mhm.
then need cybersecurity professionals, information security professionals, securing and laying the groundwork for, information that goes through those companies and whatnot. That's such definitely a much needed resource for sure for those companies. Dara, how can someone stand out when applying for their first cybersecurity job or even information security job?
Building your human network, I think, is one of the most critical components of anything that makes you stand
Mm.
out. I mean, even in my own career, I've put in 700 plus applications one time when I was out of work. As a senior leader in cybersecurity, I never envisioned that I'd have to put out 7 plus 100 applications for a position, right? And
Mhm.
it out of those 700, you want to know how many interviews I got out of that? About 7. You want to
Yeah,
know how many interviews I got out of my human network? Way more than 7. It's your
mm,
human network that's actually going to show and shine and promote who you are. Mike, you and I have never actually met in person, but
yeah,
yet at the same time, you were like, hey, I don't sit here and think of myself as a cyber pro because I'm a mom, I'm a professional, I'm a woman in cybersecurity, I'm the president of Arizona InfraGard. But at the same time, it is the cyber professional that got me where I am today. So thank you for pointing that out because it really helped me be inspired to
for sure.
continue my growth.
One of the reasons, and you just reminded me, Dara. Anything that we do, speaking to those of us that are in IT, cybersecurity, information security fields right now, is that we get caught up in our work, which is fine, helping people, whether it be doing Active Directory stuff, blue teaming, red teaming, GRC things, system administrative stuff, email administration, and we tend to forget sometimes. I know I do sometimes kind of put the legwork to think outside the box, if you will, when it comes to promoting. You mentioned marketing. I think that's a big tool to use as far as how to leverage marketing and leverage those folks that trying to get people pivoting careers, if you will, too. For example, I pivoted my career from law enforcement into IT, then eventually into information security because I started watching out of the blue IT Pro TV, just out of the blue, and that kind of gave me more encouragement to find my first IT job. And in my early to mid 30s, and so I was kind of late to the game, but those people out there like yourself, Dara, that are willing to put in the work to get people involved, interested in this industry. That's it's man, I've been inspired from many folks, and it's definitely much needed for sure.
And it's meeting those people, right? Because
Sure.
and building your LinkedIn network, right? Because that helps you build your personal network as well.
Mm,
And focusing on your personal marketing, your personal brand. If you're going to constantly put information out there, make it educational, make it make sense, make it align with your goals of where you see your next, position, because it people are out there watching and following who you are. And if you aren't protecting your brand or marketing yourself as the expert or the pro, people won't believe you. So, and we'll go back to your shout out earlier for Adrian.
true.
Adrian, that's a huge leap for you to say, hey, I did this. I helped protect, and this was something important. Put it in your LinkedIn account, put it in your
True.
resume, be your own marketer.
Dara, you're passionate about cybersecurity awareness training. What are some training tips that really stick with employees?
I use the MAPS concept, right? You want to focus on multi factor authentication. That's the M in MAPS. A for awareness training, focus on phishing training. Understand what a fish looks like. Are you going to get hooked on that next shiny object? Are you going to click? So, cybersecurity awareness training is the A for MAPS.
Mm,
P is password management. Building those passwords. 123 password is still the number one password that people use. Unbelievable. But you know what? They make it fancy, Mike. They put dollar signs
true.
instead of the S's in passwords. So,
True.
they think they're being clever, but the threat actors are just as clever. So use a password manager and use those intricate 14, 16, 20, numerals and symbols, because that's what's going to protect you in the long run. So now we've covered multi-factor for M, A for awareness training, P
Mm,
for password manager, and S for software updates. Keeping those software updates, patch management is critical. Making sure your vulnerabilities are not exploited out to the hackers, that's where you're going to find success. And just those simple 4 steps: multi-factor, awareness training, password manager, and software updates. Those 4 right there are key to reducing your risk. Is it going to stop all threat actors? No, but you're one step ahead
true.
of the threat actors by spelling the word MAPS.
I love that. I love the acronym right there to use because that's such a it's so easy to remember that. And everybody uses maps, Apple Maps or Google Maps,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of like a trajectory, if you will, to have really good cyber security hygiene. That's really really awesome. Especially those we see still organizations out there not using multi-factor authentication. You see that you're like, oh man, like so but implementing those things and using a password manager. I when I first got into IT, I used to from law enforcement, I would work on people's computers. Especially the finance department. We'll go into like a finance department. They're especially if it's on a Friday, they're doing checks, for the employees and whatnot. And I see sticky notes just on the monitors, on the keyboards, and even back then I was just doing IT things, and I told one of the ladies there, I was like, wow, that's anybody could just walk in. Like I just walked in, I didn't have to put no code to get into the finance department. It's just an open door. I walk in, I could just be anybody. When you see that, you're like, hey, use a password manager. Don't put your passwords on sticky notes. And there's still many people that do that. And we go through our working lives and whatnot. We need to get stuff done, so we use sticky notes as remember. But yeah, I think getting a habit, like you mentioned, Dara, using a password manager, like you mentioned, having really good cybersecurity hygiene, that's definitely a way towards that, and have better management of that for sure.
Absolutely. Because remember, you are the human element, you are the human link for your business and your home. Threat actors are
True.
also not only going after the businesses, but now they're going into the personal bank accounts of the people. So these also need to be applied to your everyday personal life as well, because you are the human element and the first line of defense for your business and your home for protecting that sensitive data.
Tend to forget sometimes, those that have internet at home. Make sure you secure your cable modem with a really good password. Don't use the password that Spectrum or Cox Cable or AT&T have it on there. Make sure you change those passwords. It's such, little things like that definitely make a big difference, and
Mhm.
knocking out those little things like that can make a huge difference when it comes to threat actors trying to do all kinds of nasty stuff out there for sure. What do you believe will be some of the most in demand skills for 2025 and beyond, as far as when it comes to information security?
You brought up earlier being able to think outside of the box, right?
Mhm.
As an investigator for any sort of cybersecurity event, you want to be able to think outside of the box. Reading the codes are critical for that investigation to find out who the threat actor was, how they got in, where they got in, how they what they took, what information was there. But being able to think outside of the box and view things just a little bit different. I come from a master's degree in education, so I've looked at things a lot different than the engineer who truly just looks at the ones and zeros. And it's so being able to think outside of the box, and also communication, having the ability to talk with your local colleagues and your people that you work with. Maybe we use Zoom and Teams all the time, but using the appropriate communication strategies to make sure that you are speaking on the same level with those people, because we don't want misinformation or malinformation to change what we're doing, because cybersecurity
Mhm.
analysts and behaviorists and red teamers and blue teamers, we're trying to do good for the world, because we're trying to make sure that what we're doing to protect our personal and professional entities, we're doing right by the world. And I know I don't wake up every morning thinking, oh, what can I hack today? What can I destroy?
Yeah.
What can I make worse? Because the reason why a lot of us get into cybersecurity is, how can we make things better? Or
Mhm.
sitting on those incident response calls where their worst business day of their life just occurred, and we need to do better as an industry to help them become operable again, get their business back up operational. How can we do this fast? How can we do this efficiently? And I'd be remiss to say understanding AI. I mean, there's still times where people would say, hey, did you know AI can do this? And I'm like, ooh, it can write recipes, it can do cool things. Yeah, but it can also do really cool things for cybersecurity as well. So we want to make sure that we're staying ahead of our educational plans, making sure that we're doing right for the world by being cybersecurity professionals.
That's such a good explanation. Yeah, no, it's especially when it comes to AI, like it's especially, for those, in the fields, like I create, standard operating procedures, all day, and I use AI just kind of to help me out, kind of flesh things out, and it's definitely much needed. And for example, like you mentioned AI, I was at a talk, Yuma, Arizona, local high school, talking to students, and they're already using ChatGPT and other language models out there to plan their course as far as like cybersecurity training, IT training, and it broke it down to them and stuff like that. And it just reminded me. I remember being in high school in the late '90s, and I mean, back then we didn't have any AI stuff. So,
No, you had the little book that the university gave you and said, hey, you need to
yeah,
take these classes in this order.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, and it was such encouraging because I at 16, 17, I was such a different person, but seeing these young students to be like, "Hey, let me use AI to kind of plan my trajectory as far as like cybersecurity training, IT training, what resources can I get?" But they were just using it, and it was such a encouragement to know that, okay, hey, when I'm done with my career, these students are going to take over. So they're doing the right steps. They're learning. So it's such encouragement to see that for sure.
And we as professionals also need to do better, because we need to be
For sure.
open to mentoring those people that are making those choices to say, hey, I went and checked out, and my career path should look like this. How can I help? Right. But and those people that are utilizing those paths or those skills are seeking the mentorship from the senior level people. We need to
Mhm.
be doing better and offering our mentorship. But we need to make sure that, when you being the person looking for that mentorship and guidance, don't just say, hey, I want to become a cybersecurity specialist.
Mm.
There's a lot you can do, right? Come and with goals and trajectories and objectives in mind that say, hey, you know what? I've really thought about this. Here's what I think I need to do. Can you help me? And, a lot of us are willing to help
Mm.
and make sure that the next generation is ready.
Someone helped us, so we definitely want to get back for sure. Dara, for aspiring CISOs or VCISOs, what's the one advice you'd give that no one really talks about?
Stay current on your education. Certifications are really good and they're kind of a pain at the same time, right? Nobody wants to speak about this aspect of it, but if you don't stay current with your certifications, you may lose it.
Mm.
And then having to go back and retest for something you've been doing for years and years, it seems really redundant. So stay current on your CPEs, stay current on your education, because it makes you a better, BCISO or a better CISO or a better manager. Being on top of the current education trends in that field definitely will keep you, you know, ahead of the next threat.
We always talk about this on this podcast, Dara, that education, whether your trajectories in IT, cybersecurity, information security, whatever it may be, in these fields, education and learning and adapting to different trends as far as technology and all that stuff. You definitely looking from the outside in. You definitely want to make sure that you have that mindset. If I get into this, if I get into these fields, I'm going to have to learn. What I always mention, if we're young, if we're older, we're going to have to learn and adapt because that's going to help the organizations we work for or the clients we serve.
Mhm.
Even for those that, like yourself, Dara, you come from education background, learning that information and consuming that information, and then finally teaching these students from the stuff that you've learned. It's worth its weight in gold for sure. But
Mhm.
that's something even, and I speak to myself too, because we sometimes we get caught up and we're working and whatnot. Life happens, but definitely got to make sure that in the back of our head we definitely take care of our education, certifications, and yeah, no one really likes to do recertification on certification you had for years and stuff. But definitely, those are definitely much needed for sure. If you weren't in cybersecurity, what would you be doing today?
Good question. I would probably still be in the classroom. I was doing a long-term sub position and they offered me a full-time teaching position. And I didn't
Awesome.
accept it. I knew there was something greater that I needed to look into and do. I didn't know what it was. And the very next day was when I met the cybersecurity company.
Thinking back, reminiscing back for when I was a student, a young kid, from elementary school to high school, there's really only five or six in my mind right now that I can think of that really I remember because they said something or they did something that kind of triggered my memory. And to this day, I still remember. Shout out to Mr. Weber, who's at Yuma High School in Yuma, Arizona. He's one of those five or six teachers I remember in my mind that really stood out because he would teach history and bring in stuff from history and kind of made it fun to do that. But I think that's awesome, being a teacher and stuff like that, to inspire folks. I mean, that's what the job is, and get people dreaming and whatnot.
We used to mummify things when I was teaching, and I remembered I'd have the kids mummify the apples, and they'd have
Oh,
to reach in
nice.
and grab the seeds out with the hook. And so
Oh,
then they
nice.
had to wrap the apples and find them and create the sarcophagus and stuff like that. So I always made
Oh, that's
history
awesome.
fun.
Dara, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I think that our talk was really awesome, especially for those that never really thought about, different areas and spaces in cybersecurity, information security, as far as marketing, doing GRC things, even cybersecurity insurance, cyber insurance. Those are things I don't think people, students are really aware of, but it's definitely much needed.
Give props out to U of A. They actually
Awesome.
designed a cyber law program right now.
Awesome.
So kudos to U of A. Usually I'm a fan of Northern Arizona University. Go
Uh-huh.
Jacks. But kudos to U of A for building a cyber law program, because again, that's to your point. These are avenues that people don't think of, but we need incident response lawyers and privacy attorneys because it's so important these days to be done in a lawful manner.
I think all the universities, colleges, specifically not just Arizona, but other states are definitely, but especially Arizona, because I live in the state, I can see that there's a lot of legwork and a lot of things going on to get people the latest and greatest education skills that needed for the the jobs right now they're needed. And yeah, shout out to all the teachers, inspiring and whatnot for sure. Dara, for those that may have a question as far as like cyber insurance or maybe GRC things or information security career advice, or even just the content or even the business that you started, how can they get a hold of you?
The easiest way is cyberready.io or Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors. That's the business website. My personal website, which has podcasts and information about my career plans and where I'm going with that, is on daragibson.com. LinkedIn, that's where you'll find a lot of my nuggets of knowledge going in on LinkedIn. So those are the aspects of where you can find me. You may see me on TikTok soon.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So be aware. Check out Dara when she comes to TikTok. There we go.
Yep.
Thank you, Dara, again. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, inspiring folks, and we appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you so much.
And this is episode number 19 in the books. Dara Gibson, CEO, CISO of Cybersecurity Readiness Advisors. See you guys.